One of my favorite things is a blank page. And I'm aware that what I've done here with this visual is I've taken a blank page and put another blank page on it. See, the thing is with a blank page, that's where ideas come from, right? A blank page can be anything. Every great creative mind loves a blank page because when you look at it, the possibilities are endless. But it's also a little scary, right? Because a blank page, you know, you could do it wrong. What if I put something down there and that's not what I was supposed to do? So it can be a little intimidating. So what I want to do is I want to think about how today we can harness the power of a blank page in order to help organizations get stronger, smarter, and happier. I decided to put a ship onto this blank page. I probably could have come up with something a little bit more creative than that, but there's a metaphor, so I'll explain it in a second. As I was introduced, I have spent the last few years leading innovation and working with innovation, particularly with big organizations. I currently work for one of the bigger independent advertising agencies in the country, and there are 500 people there. That is a big ship to turn when you're trying to change things, hence the metaphor. It's actually even harder when you've not put any water on it, so I'll add a little bit of water to it. That's my Photoshop skills. Thank you very much. When I think about innovation, and we think about how do we change, and how do we evolve, and how do we get better at what we do, how do we constantly learn, I don't look at innovation the way that I think a lot of people do, which is they kind of confuse it with tech. And for me, technology leads to innovation, right? It leads to behaviors that need to change. And also, sometimes innovation leads to new technology, but they're not one and the same. Innovation, for me, is fundamentally about change, and how do we make that happen? So one of the things I want to think about is an innovation hack that I can share with you guys. It's pretty simple, actually. And if you walk away with nothing else that I say today but this is worth remembering. Ask lots of questions. Great innovators just ask questions. They ask crazy questions. They ask stupid questions. They ask smart questions, insightful questions. Who, what, where, when, why, how, what if? They ask all these kind of questions. And when you do this, don't worry about the answers. Just ask the questions. Figure out what your problem is and try to attack it a bunch of different ways. That's how you unlock innovation. So that's the hack. And here are some of the questions that I wanted to think about, right? How can we inspire people to change rather than telling them that they have to? You know, what does our team need to be like in order to be able to thrive in the future? How can we help people learn rather than just being taught or lectured to? And I'm aware of the hypocrisy that I'm lecturing to an audience while I say that. And how can we foster a culture of positivity, of possibility, and of self-initiative? These are the questions that I'm trying to think about when I think about changing our organization so that we can be stronger and happier. So we put all these things together, and it brings me back to the blank page. Because what I'm going to share with you is an initiative that we put together that I think anybody could do the same thing, because it's really basically simple. Right? This is probably a fairly sophisticated audience. So we've got this big white page. Does anybody know, when it comes to the digital manifestation of this, what the hex code is for the color white? F, 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 F. That's exactly right. 6 Fs in a row. So what we decided to call this initiative, thank you, I'm glad somebody knew. I planted in there. What we decided to call this initiative was 6F, which we thought was really clever. Nobody else liked the name. Everybody else hated that name. But one of the things I realized is that if you sort of stick to your guns long enough, people just come around. So this is 6F, and it's a possibility. It's anything can happen. And what it is, fundamentally, is we gather whoever wants to come and do this within the agency. We bring them together for a kickoff meeting, and then we spend 6 consecutive Wednesday evenings just figuring out how can we make something happen. That's the idea. It's like, what can we make happen? And it's as open as that. So we gather everybody in the first week, and what they do is they pitch their ideas. What do you want to do? What do you want to make happen? And then we form teams around that, and then over the next 6 weeks, we dedicate that time to try to make it happen. But here's the important thing. We don't guarantee them success. We don't do it for them. They have to figure out how to make the thing happen. We've just given them permission to pursue it. And so I'll share with you some of the stuff that the teams have gone about making happen during this time. One of the ones that I thought these guys wanted to make happen was make timesheets better. Timesheets suck. They just do. And so they came up with a better user experience for timesheets. They had even more, but they had some political and technical hurdles. Another group wanted to be able to put together a recycling and a sustainability initiative. And at first they were trying to boil the whole ocean, but then pretty soon they realized that if they just tried one thing per month, they could make that happen. And after a year of doing that, they've accomplished 12 things. It was pretty remarkable to watch that transformation happen. We had a group that wanted to be more philanthropic, and they wanted to come up with all sorts of ways to give back and to volunteer in the world. And one of the things they did is, the agency typically does a Toys for Tots kind of a collection box that just sits next to reception and maybe gets a little bit. And they said, you know what, we want to win this thing. We want to collect more toys than any other agency in the entire city. And they put together a game night where they asked people to come and they could just bring a toy and then have that game, or, and this was the genius part, if you didn't have time to go buy a toy, because nobody has time to go buy a toy, just bring $20. And they managed to totally double the amount that the nearest agency did. And that's just one of the many initiatives that this team has put together. We had somebody who wanted to figure out how could, if we've got 500 people, how can we share the skills with 3 Z's is what they call this initiative. How can we share the skills of all the different people here? And so they put together an online video service where people could just record like 5 to 10 minute little webinars that anybody within the organization could see. And the first beta test of this was actually from one of our coders who put it together, and it was for art directors on how to clearly document your font use, because he was really sick of answering that question over and over again. We've got RPA Sports, which wasn't really a sports program, and RPA is the name of the agency, so it's not confusing. It wasn't really a sports program. They wanted to do weird things, not like baseball or basketball, but like bocce ball. So they did a bocce ball tournament, and I participated and did really badly, which is sad because I'm usually pretty reliable when it comes to bocce ball. We had a group that put together a trend forecasting organization. This is what they wanted to make happen. How could they put together this thing and make it easy and frictionless to share within the agency itself? We had a group that wanted to make happen, figuring out different ways to be able to hack different digital platforms. And I don't mean actually hack into it, but use it in a way that isn't what it's supposed to be used for. In this case, they took Spotify and made poetry out of it. So it says, I wish for $1 every time inspiration wasn't that good. It's pretty deep. And that was all made out of Spotify playlist. We had a group that put together a robot, and because the name of the agency is RPA, they called it RPD2. And they didn't actually build this robot, this is what it will be, but they did get the prototype together. This is RPD1, the prototype version of the robot, which is pretty fun that they actually made this thing happen. And I'm amazed that it took this long, but in the last session, we've done 3 of these now, we actually had a group that wanted to brew their own beer. And so they put together 6F Brewery, or Brew 6F, and actually made it happen. They figured out how they were going to brew the beer. They put together little cups with the logo on it, and they shared it with everybody at the happy hour throughout the agency. They all made these different things happen, right? And so one of the things when we do this is we just say, well, what do you want to make happen? It's not about what you want to learn, but it is secretly a bit of a training program. And we call it deliberately accidental learning. So we have all these questions, right? All these questions that I asked about earlier. And when you take these questions, well, how does, brewing beer or making a robot or playing bocce ball, how do those help answer these things? Well, it's what I said, this deliberately accidental learning. You don't tell them what they're going to learn. I don't know what it is, but we're not going to do it for them. They have to figure it out. And as they do that, they will learn something. That's it. It's accidental. But they learn all sorts of stuff. So if you take the example that I just shared about just the beer brewing group, right? They had to figure out how to do that in the first place. They had to ask permission. They had to go to HR to do that. When they wanted to make the cups, they had to make a pitch to the finance director, who luckily is a fan of beer, so he said yes. They had to learn leadership skills. They had to learn project management skills. They work with a variety of people around the office that they don't normally interact with. Normally there's different disciplines, and these disciplines all came together to work on this. So they met people they didn't otherwise work with. And they learned fundamentally how to make ideas happen, rather than just do what you're told. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with all of those things. So I think one of the reasons that I want to share this concept of 6F is I'm hopeful that people will take it, that other people will just run with it. It's a very simple thing, and I've probably made it seem more perfect than it is, if I did. But it can be shaky. Half the fun and excitement of it is that there are very few rules involved. It's just you get people together, what do you want to make happen, and you give them permission to go do that. And a little bit of structure goes a long way. Some of the people that have gone through this said that it's the most exciting part of what they do when they come to work, and that's what keeps them motivated. So it's a tremendous thing to give back. We've been doing it for about a year now, and we've run 3 sessions, and the amount of spirit and culture that it builds is pretty impressive. So there's one last initiative that I'll share with you. Not everything is a success. Lots of things are a failure. And I said we've run through this 3 times. Every single time, somebody's tried to create an initiative where we're allowed to bring dogs into the office. Every single time. It's against the lease. Like, the lease explicitly forbids it. So it's one of the harder things, harder obstacles to get over. And so eventually people try and explore. What's interesting is that they learn by trying and by having permission to try that it isn't anybody standing in their way. Because before that, they just complained about it. What they learn is that, you know what, there are real legitimate reasons that this is the way it is. But I hope people keep attacking it. Not because necessarily I want dogs in the office. I'm allergic to dogs, so that wouldn't be the best thing for me. But what it'll mean is that they used their innovation, they used creativity, and they made it happen. And that would be the thing that I'm most proud of. So that's the power of the blank page. I hope everybody else will go out and do something awesome with it. Thank you very much.